It is Easter Sunday as I record this video, and I was thinking about some Star Trek that I was watching, actually playing. I've been playing the new, well, it's not even that new, Star Trek RPG game. Came out last year. Star Trek Resurgence, I believe. In any case, there's a scene in there where you're trying to rescue the crew of a vessel, and you're transporting the crew from their derelict ship to the Federation vessel, and something goes wrong. So one of your officers is trying to hold this wire in place, which is sort of a conduit for some sort of data or electricity or something, and the wire has to be held in place in order to transport these people on another ship to save their lives. But while she's holding the wire there, it's sort of frying her hands, and you can tell if she keeps doing that, then she's gonna die. So long story short, there's a choice that you as the player have to make. Are you going to save the one, your crew member, or are you going to allow her to be sacrificed, but by her actions you will save several crew members of a ship which isn't yours? That's an interesting quandary to be in, and there really isn't any exactly correct answer there. Do you save one person who's close to you, or do you save several people who are perhaps their lives matter, but they're not your crew? My choice would be to save my one crew member, not to save all the people who I don't know. Now, is that the right thing to do? Well, maybe not. I don't know. But I do think in real life that's how it would always work out, isn't it? If you could save your wife or your husband or your kid, right? You would do that, even if that meant that you wouldn't be able to save a bunch of strangers. So is it right that you would sacrifice the life of 5 people to save the life of one? It might not be right. But it's also important to protect the things that you love and cherish in life. And if we erode that trust, by and large, it's not the right thing. Because then you can start to go down the path of believing that we should be willing to sacrifice a few people for the greater good. At a macro level, you start to get into things like, let's say somebody like Bill Gates or somebody on the World Economic Forum or something like that. They say, well, you know, what if we let a few hundred or a few thousand people around the world die, but then we're saving lives somewhere else, or we're improving the likelihood of humanity surviving. So we will let a few people die now so the planet doesn't get overpopulated. Because if we allow the planet to get overpopulated, then maybe our species won't make it in the end. So it's better to let some people die of disease today than to risk everyone perishing in another 50 years or something like that. Then those guys are still, you know, riding around on jets and eating caviar and stuff, probably. Because even if they're willing to sacrifice other people, they're probably not going to be sacrificing themselves. I think it's better to have an attitude of saying loyalty comes first and above all else. Even if sometimes that results in a situation where the human choice isn't the technically correct one. And in reality, we don't normally find ourselves in those situations where you are going to choose which life you're going to save or something like that. Those sorts of extremely poignant command decisions which cost lives and have a very clear trade-off are rare in our lives. So it's also important to say, you know, you start talking about hypothetical scenarios. What are you doing about the everyday scenarios that you are likely to encounter in life? You're probably not going to have to choose whether to save one person or to save 6 strangers, you know, like you're not going to have that choice. You're going to have the opportunity, though, to do things that are going to make your day better, your life better, or maybe the opportunity to serve others in a way that helps them to live a better life. Maybe you have to do a trade-off because you can't just add value into your life. You also have to remove some things that don't add value, right? So the trade-off is usually not that dramatic. The trade-off is about being willing to put something other than yourself first, because you believe that the highest form of selfishness is service. Because I'm going to be dead after a while. So if I'm going to be dead and I'm going to be gone and I want power and glory, then the best way for me to achieve that isn't to be in a silo, to segregate myself to an island and try to build up a pile of gold for my own enjoyment. The goal is to share the experience with others. It's to create a framework for something which will go on after I'm gone. That's how I can live forever. So maybe it's something simple like, instead of just playing a game, I kind of want to share my experience with other people and network and connect with others over this, right? Because when we connect and we share experiences, then we're doing something which will outlast us. Because if I just have that fun experience and then it goes into the void, then you might say I just wasted my time. But when I do something cool, I see something cool, I'm sharing it with other people, I'm posting it on a forum or Reddit or Facebook or whatever it might be, you know, like these are things where now it's a shared experience. Or you go to a convention and you meet people who have a shared passion and interest for things that you like. You know, it's all about saying, well, how do we take these things that are solitary experiences and then elevate them into something which is more meaningful, something that's more special, something that is going to outlast our own personal experience. How do we enjoy our lives, enjoy the things in our life, but also understand that service to something greater than self is really what makes life feel meaningful? As we contemplate the concept of redemption and resurrection and rebirth at Easter time and the beginning of spring, that redemption theme couldn't exist without the concept of service to something higher than self. And I'm not really a religious person, but certainly there's some beauty in the imagery of dying and then being reborn. You can't have that kind of a story if you live only for yourself. You also can't have that kind of a story without being willing to give up on the things of the world, right? Because if you think about the Christian story of Jesus dying and being reborn, resurrected, and rising again on the third day, I think the main catalyst of the story is that Jesus was God, so he didn't have to die. So he chose to sacrifice himself. He chose to sacrifice his own personal satisfaction, his opportunity to perhaps enjoy a mortal life, if you will, to go through a negative experience of betrayal and suffering, so that someone else, or perhaps many others, could experience redemption. Now, we're not going to go out and die for somebody else, but we can have that attitude on a daily basis that we are willing to sacrifice something so that others can have an experience which we ourselves have forfeit on their behalf. And you say, well, what do you get for it? Like, what is the payment? What is the reward for me to give up something, to sacrifice for others? And the answer to that is really just simply that if you love others, you're willing to give of yourself for their sake, even if you don't get anything measurable in return, because the knowledge that you've invested in something which is going to go on and enrich others, in a sense, is self-serving, because having a legacy enriches your sense of purpose in life. Now, what sacrifice we make, what choices we make, what path we take is really open to interpretation. And my conclusion here is that you're going to go through life and you're going to make choices. You know, do you sacrifice for one thing? Do you sacrifice for something else? And you're not going to be sure exactly what command decision is the right one to make in many situations. But usually if you put yourself in the shoes of others and you're trying to do what's right for a cause that is higher than self, you're going to be able to make something in the ballpark of the right decision, even if others could question whether it was the right decision. You in your heart will know that you can go to sleep with a clear conscience, because you aren't just living your life for petty greed. You're not trying to measure up to other people. You're not trying to flex on other people. You're not just trying to get more power for the sake of power alone. If you do what you do by coming from a place of love and service to something higher than self, then wherever you draw the line, chances are you're not going to be too far off the mark. As we go through the Easter weekend and come out on the other side, it wouldn't hurt for us to meditate a little bit on the concept of service. Because it's really easy to go down the path of cynicism, to start to say, I'm frustrated about this or that thing that didn't go my way. Maybe I'm a little bit angry at somebody for being stupid or not aligning with what I wanted them to do, or I don't like someone's character, or any number of things. You know, we can be grumbly. We should make a point to allow ourselves to die to our old self and be reborn into something new, and to try every day to approach life through the lens of loving others, with the enlightened understanding that by doing so, we in effect are also practicing a love of ourself. Because we can't exist in a bubble, and we can't truly be fulfilled if we don't also take into consideration other people and the world that we are part of on a daily basis. In any case, as always, happy Easter and best wishes for your adventure. Till next time, thanks so much for watching.